All right, today's engine install day, and you know what? This should have been very simple. Everything was lined up, it was ready to drop in, and then the Mountune water pump kit decided it needed a little extra room. It stuck out just far enough to hit the frame. So out came the cutoff wheel. And here's the best part. Once it was in, it probably would have fit anyway. Oh, well, it is what it is. After that, I reassembled the rear suspension. I talk about the radius arm and the alignment shims, and finish things off with some big changes to the rear brakes. So let's dive in, starting with the engine and transaxle install. All right, fast forward, dropping this motor in, and I ran into a bit of a snag. So, you know, this water pump kit is advertised for the Lotus twin cam. And I just went ahead and bought it on that. And I think it's more for the Elan than it is the Europa. And here's why. It's unusual. The alternative, well, I guess it is for the Europa because they have the water neck right here for the water pump. However, this sticks out a lot farther, about 1.5 inches more than the Europa water pump. And this is blocked off because we don't use that. I think the Elan uses that. So here's the problem. It wants to be right in the middle of the frame, and it can't be there. It wants it, but it can't. So two choices. I could cut this and have a plug TIG welded on there. However, that's not a great option because I don't TIG weld, and I don't want to carry the motor somewhere, and I don't really know anybody to come over and TIG weld that for me. So, second alternative, cut a notch in the frame, and then we'll come back and we'll have to reinforce the frame a little bit. I'm not so much worried about taking this horizontal top section off. It's this vertical plate right here that resists a lot of this, this twist in this direction, and I would like to replace that through this notched section or reinforce it in another way. But for right now, to get the engine back in the chassis, I do need to cut this out. So I'm going to do that now. All right, that's what I needed. Things always work out this way. Yeah, this is sticking out a little bit, and of course, it has to fall right in the same plane as the frame. Of course it does. That's just the way these things go. All right, so anyway, it's in there. It's lining up pretty well. I've got 2 bolts in the back of the gearbox to the frame with the gearbox mounts, but they're not tightened down so I can get some movement. And kind of now it's just it's a symphony of everything is loose. So this motor mount and this motor mount, I put this on first and then I fit this one in. I got 2 bolts just to hold it in place. Everything is loose so I can still get movement. But it seems like it's going to line up okay. So while this is all loose, before I bolt anything, I want to get the other side in as well and slowly dial in on tightening everything down and lining it up. So everything seems to be lining up nicely. I think I'm going to go ahead and bolt these motor mount arms to the engine now and torque those down. And then put the bolts through the connection and then torque everything down. So I think we're in good shape. All right, we're making progress. Before I put on the radius arms, the axle, the hubs, I want to get these lower links in. All right, we're making progress. Before I put on the radius arms, the axle, the hubs, I want to get these lower links in. All right, we're making progress. Before I put on the radius arms, the axle, the hubs, I want to get these lower links in. It's easier now because there's a lot more room, there's a lot more access. So I did The old bushings were kind of shot on these, so I pressed them out. I got new bushings in there. I just gave them a little paint to top them off. So they're good to go back on. And it is, getting them started is tight. They are about, with the bushing in there, it's about 1/8 of an inch wider than the receiving slot. So it's going to take a little twisting, finagling, maybe a little rubber mallet action to get it in there. I've already got the other side in, but I'm going to go ahead and put this in. Got some new hardware that I'm going to fasten it with. We got a couple extensions here, ratchet extensions, to see if I can line up that hole. I'm close. Oh, that worked great, I think. There we go. Bolts going in. Nice. So I used a 3/8 socket extension, and it's just a little smaller than the hole. Got it in there, and the nose is a little smaller, and once I got it through, just moved it around a little bit, and it centered up nicely. So now I just need to put the washer and the nut on, and I'm just going to snug them up. I don't want to torque anything till we get the car done, and then we'll set it on its weight, and then we'll set up the suspension. All right, so I took it off as a unit, radius arm, the axle, the hub, the brake assembly, and I'm going to put it back on as a unit. Now, I debated taking this apart and vapor blasting the hub because it's aluminum. It would look really good. It'd give me a chance to clean some stuff up. But I can do that after I get a rolling chassis. So right now the goal is just to get everything back together, get a rolling chassis, assess, and then go on to the next step. So in this step, pretty simple, just a couple things. This radius arm, if you take these off, what you want to be really careful of is there are a bunch of shims in here for alignment. And so the bolt goes through the radius arm, and then you're going to have a stack of, they're washers essentially, but they're shims to set up the alignment of the wheels. And if you take it apart, make sure that you keep these shims and all of this in a little bag, and you label it left and right because they're different left and right, and you don't want to lose this stuff. So your best chance of getting a good alignment is putting it back the way you took it off, and then if it's off, you can tweak it from there. So that's what I did. Again, small washer, bolt goes through the radius arm, then you got your shims, and then you've got the large washer that's going to press against the bushing there. That goes in, and then the whole unit slides in. On the other side, you'll see the same type of large bushing on the inside, and then you just slide this big fat washer on, and then you got a nut next to that. So that's how that goes together. So let's do that first. Get that in there. Now I'm going to reach in and put the large washer on. And I'm just going to start this nut and thread it on a little bit. I'm not going to tighten it. I just want it so it doesn't fall out. All right, that's on there. And we're going to move to the axle. And the key here is you got to line up. You got to line up the dowels that go through the axle. So you got to pay attention to that. All right, so first off, I'm going to try to find the hole in the axle. There it is, right on top. All right, I'm going to lift up my axle, find the hole in the axle, and I might be 180 degrees off. They only go on one way. They're not symmetrical. So I'm going to try this first, and hopefully we get lucky. Yeah, perfect. So that lined up perfectly. I can put that roll pin back in and we'll be all set. So now I've got lower control arm, I've got the hub, I've got the axle and the radius arm. So now it's just a matter of, I think I want to put this top shock brace on because I do need the shock. What I'm going to do is then take the large bolt that goes through the control arm, through the hub, and through the shock, and get all that mounted up. I know, probably hard to see. There's a lot in the way, but I've just got the coilover suspended here with the bolt. It's not tightened or anything. It's just kind of hanging out. So the plan is, I have not put the roll pin in yet. I'm kind of waiting on that. That's okay. I'm going to lift this up, align everything, and I've got my bolt here and a bunch of washers, but basically one washer on each side of a bushing. Got to remember that. That's important. And then on this side, I got to stack like 3 washers because this is not stock. So if I only use one washer on either side of the shock or the coilover bushings, it's going to hit the hub. So I use about 3 washers there just to give it enough room to bypass that hub. So that's why we have about 1,000 washers on here. So let's see what happens. It's one of those jobs you could really use 3 hands because there's just a lot going on. I guess I'll start going through there. And now I'm going to put another washer on and see if I can lift this up, align it with the hub, get that going through. Actually, before I do that, I want to make sure I mention this. I'm going to put some anti-seize lubricant on the bolt because I just like doing that when you're putting steel through aluminum. It's always a good idea. And anybody out there who's worked on a Lotus Esprit and has tried to get that stud out of the bottom of the hub to get the axles off, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They can get so seized you actually have to cut them off. So I use the Permatex anti-seize lubricant. So if I need to take it apart in the future, or somebody 20 years from now wants to take it apart, they'll have a better chance of success. It's just good practice. All right, where were we? Let's get back to where we were. All right, I'll lift the assembly, try to hold it, start my bolt. Pop a washer on the other side. Line it up with the hub. There we go. Push it through. I should have put the roll pin in. It wants to come out, but that's okay. We're going to work through it. Now here, I know you can't see, but I'm putting 3 washers against the hub because again, I need the clearance for the coilover. I'm lowering it down a little bit, line up the holes. And give it a little tap. I got another washer on the outside. And then finally my nut. And I hope that axle doesn't fall out. Oh, it's so close. I really need to get that roll pin in. I'll do that next. But for now, that's how I chose to disassemble and assemble the rear suspension, mostly just to get the engine out, but it's also good to take it apart to look at everything. So I'll do the same to the other side, and right now I'm going to tackle those roll pins. All right, I put a jack under the hub to kind of help hold that in. I should have done this earlier, but whatever. All right, I'm going to push it in. I've started that roll pin. All right, here we go. Cool. So this is pretty much buttoned up. I mean, you know, it's not torqued down, but I'm going to snug it up, and then when we set it on the ground, like I said before, then we'll set up the suspension. Now I just need to do the same thing to the other side, and then we'll pick up from there. All right, I am going to torque up the radius arms. They go to 35 foot-pounds. There we go. One more. All right, there we go. 35 foot-pounds. Those are good to go. Quick comment on torquing the bolts. So I know if you're not building cars over and over and over again, and you've got one project car, when you're tightening something on the suspension, it's easy to not think about, oh, that has to be torqued to a specific specification, and you just go ahead and you tighten it down. But most everything on the chassis and the engine, and many other places in the car, has torque specs. And the reason I bring this up is because it's really important. It's super important to the drive ability, the handling of the car, and the way the car feels. If you over tighten this, it's going to be too stiff in the suspension. It's just not going to do what it was meant to do. And if it's too loose, it's going to be a little sloppy. And again, it's not going to do what it was meant to do. So if you're doing this yourself in the garage, try to always remind yourself to slow down and ask yourself, do I have to torque this to a specification? Look in the manual, everything's listed in there. And if it does require a spec, then certainly torque it to that spec. The only thing I'm not sure about here, I know most suspension components, you don't torque until you sit the car on the ground. This one, I don't know if that's true or not. So I torqued it here. I mean, the car technically is on the ground, but it doesn't have all the weight on it yet. So I'll have to go back and just double check that what I did was okay, but I think I'm okay. But the point was, hey, everything gets torqued to a spec, and it's super critical, especially in the suspension. If you want it to feel like it did when it left the factory, you got to do that. All right, today we're making some modifications to the braking system. I am not running those two big boosters in the back. Don't see a need for that, so I'm updating the braking system to something that would be more typical to see on a modern car. So one brake line coming to the back, then hitting a T and going out to the two drum brakes on each wheel. So I've removed a lot of stuff. This, one of the animals I took off was this. So you got a proportion, well, it's a combination valve. You got proportioning and you got the brake sender here. So I've taken this off because what Lotus did originally was they sent the brake fluid to the back of the car, to the boosters, and then they sent it back up to the front of the car, to the left and the right, and to the two rear brakes. It was kind of convoluted. It was all over the place. So I'm going with a much simpler system. So this is going to be gone from the back. This is the brake line I took off the chassis. So this is going to be my main line, and I'm going to salvage this line. It's a steel line. It's in really good condition, but I need to change the length and put some different fittings on and make some modifications up here. So this one, you know, came up from the frame like this, right about there, and then made its way into that spaghetti mess. And what I want to do now is come from here, take a turn, and go into my T-junction, which will feed the two back brakes. And I've already got this junction mounted, and I bent the line, which is going over to the right side of the car, to the rear drum. And I've got another fitting here, which will come out and just circle around and come down and hit these. So I need to flare this, make a junction, and then create a short line that's going to run from about here into there. So let's do that. All right, I've already cut the line. I just want to deburr it a little bit. And I've got my handy dandy little flare tool here. Now on this end, I'm going into a junction fitting. It accepts a bubble fitting, so I'm going to do a bubble fitting on this one. And these things are great. If you do some brake line bending and some flaring, this is well worth the money. You get really good quality flares, and you're not fighting with a little handheld device, and it's just difficult to get a good flare with a handheld device. As a matter of fact, I don't even like doing flares on the car because they just don't come out as good as if you've got a bench top mounted in a vise. So I've got my right little chuck here, and they're double-sided. If you want to do a double flare, you're going to use that. If you want a bubble flare, you're doing that. So we're going bubble. I just got to get this brake line in here. Flip this over. I'm going to lock it in. Now I got this it's a flat setting. I'm just squaring everything up, and then from there I tighten down. Oops. Haha. How many times have you done this? How many times have you flared a brake line and you forgot to put the fitting on? I am guilty many times, and I caught myself that time. So let's make sure that fitting is on there. Let's get this back on the right way. Get that in there, square it up, tighten it down. Okay, now we're in better shape. So bubble flare, that's just going to take me, the settings on top, it's just telling me 3/16 line, do a bubble flare, you want this. It's only one maneuver for a bubble flare, so that's cool. And that's why I can't do it on the car. It's a lot of force, especially on the steel lines. The copper lines are not too bad, but the steel lines, you need a lot of force to make that flare. So that's it. We undo it. Let's see how we did. Yeah, so we've got a really nice bubble flare. So now that's going to go right into our junction. And then we can make the custom line that's going to go up to the T-fitting. So let's put this back on the car. All right, I am going back through the chassis with the original line. And it was just like that. All right, I'm going to put this back in the chassis clips. There we go. That's not bad. Put my adapter on. So now I just need to fabricate a piece from here to there. That shouldn't be too hard. For this run, I'm going to use copper line because that's what I have. And just estimate how much I need here. Give myself some wiggle room. I'll cut it right here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put a fitting in a flare. I'll flare this fitting on, get it hooked in here, so then I can bend that line such that it's going to feed into here nicely and look nice and neat. All right, got a good bubble flare. So let's just kind of get this in here. That'll sit like that. Now I just want to mark this. Got to give yourself a little extra length on that because when you flare it, you're losing just a little bit of length. So let's pop this off. and we'll cut that and we'll flare that. All right, we've got this connection on there. I still haven't reattached that to the frame. There's a securing bracket there and one there, so I'll do that in a minute. But first I want to fabricate this last hard line that's going to come out of here, come down, and then go into the brake line, heading out to the drum brake. I don't know, maybe I'll cut it like here. I can shorten it later. I'd rather be long than short. All right, so I got a line. I think I'll put a fitting on there, secure it in there, and then bend it around and cut it to length and put that last fitting on. And if you're noticing, I've got an old fitting there. I've got a yellow zinc fitting there. These are stainless steel. That's the original. So, you know, like I said from the beginning, I'm not going for perfection on this car. I'm going for better, reliable, and fun, and good is good enough. So when it comes to fittings, and I'm not worried if I mix things up a little bit, I'm more worried about the function of the car. If I was building a true show car or a really high-end restoration, I wouldn't be so nonchalant about this stuff. I'd be a little more particular and make sure all my fittings were the same. I'd probably go with stainless steel everywhere, but for this build, this is good enough. All right, now we've got a bubble flare on one and a nice double flare on the other. So we should be good to go. Okay, there we go. So that kind of buttons up the back brake system. It gets rid of those dual boosters. It simplifies the whole system. It modernizes it quite a bit. It's going to make maintenance easier, and I'm more comfortable with this now. So I'm going to go ahead and put the chassis brackets back on for the brake line, tighten all the fittings, secure everything, and then we'll focus tension on the front. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. We made a lot of progress. Engine's in, brake lines are starting to come together. Things are looking good. Next time we're going to shift gears. We're going to do a little bit of interior work on the gauges. We've got a tachometer that doesn't work, and we're going to find out why it doesn't work, and we're going to pull out the soldering iron and order some parts, and we are going to dive into that circuit board and fix that tachometer. In addition, we'll probably go take a look at the Europa body. It's getting really close to being painted. So until then, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. All right? See ya.